You're listening to a weekly podcast made by Miami Dolphin fans for Miami Dolphin fans. Your source for entertaining Dolphin news, insight, and general conversation. Here's your host, Michael Fink.
Hey everyone, this is Mike. The Finfans podcast is part of the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network. All right, it's Tuesday and I'm here with Jim Johnson.
Hello everybody.
And Louis Ragone.
Hey Dolphins.
We're going to talk some football today, obviously. We're going to talk about running backs. We're going to talk about wide receivers as it relates to the Dolphins and the upcoming draft. Guys, I asked you to do some looking at the scouting reports and maybe look at a little bit of film on these guys. Everybody knows we need a running back. I think there's some debate as to whether or not we need a receiver. And my thought process is we've got a lot of question marks there. We don't know how Williams is going to recover. I just don't know that we have a solid number 2 receiver. So I really do think that until we know he's healthy, there is a question mark there, assuming he's the guy that steps up and becomes that number 2 receiver. So to me, there's a question. And to me, I think at the very least, they need some depth there.
Yeah, our wide receiver group is not as strong as many think. Parker put in his best season last year, and he filled his stat sheet really up to the top. We were all surprised, and that's fantastic. But if he should regress or get another injury, Williams may not rebound. Wilson may not be back. So I'm with you. We need to get another body in here to at least push for that number 2 spot on the roster. I mean, because if anything happens injury-wise, we could be in a world of hurt quickly.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of solid depth there.
The depth is a concern. We talked about that a couple shows back.
Yeah, we did.
The interesting thing, the thing I'm going to disagree with you guys on is Preston Williams. I think he proved himself last year. As long as he comes back healthy.
Well, that's the thing, Lou.
Right.
I don't think you can bank on that. I think you've got to prepare in case he doesn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a fairly substantial injury, so it may take him half the year to get back on track.
Right. Assuming he's healthy, he's a very, very good football player, and he was matching Parker early on. It would have been interesting to see who would have came up.
The only complaint I had with him is he dropped a few too many. That's it.
Yeah, he dropped a few early on, but he's a rookie. Parker's got a few years on
You're
him.
Always making excuses for guys you like.
Well, it's hard not to like a guy that was so productive. He started from day one. So,
I'm teasing you.
I know
I
you
like
are.
him too. I don't like to make excuses for him. He's got to catch the ball. He's an NFL receiver. So rookie or not, he's got to come through, and I'm sure he will.
No question. But more times than not, he did come through, Mike. I think he was a lot more early on. I think he had some issues, and then he got better.
I'd agree with that.
His best few games were prior to him getting hurt last year. So, with Williams, I think we're fine as long as he does come back healthy. And all the reports are saying that he's on track, and he should be good to go. I haven't heard anything.
I heard the same thing about Tua.
Yeah, exactly.
But until we see him on the field, we don't know.
We don't know. Now, with that being said, past him, I think that we have to get some depth there. There's no question about it. Isaiah Ford did a solid job, but was that more Fitzpatrick making these guys look better than they actually were? I think that has something to do with it. There is some talent there. I think Albert Wilson, Grant is who he is. So, that's what we're looking at. Albert Wilson's another guy that's a big question mark, and I think you have to get a receiver, a guy that is a slot type of guy. You would assume that both Williams and Parker on the outside, they're both big, strong guys. They can both run pretty well, but we need that slot guy. We need that type of thing. I don't think Grant is ever going to turn into the type of player we thought he was going to be because he simply can't stay healthy. He's small.
I don't think he's durable enough to play in the slot. I said that from the moment they put him there.
He's got it right. He's limited. So, in regard to that, due to the fact he's small and he's returning kicks and punts for us as well. So he's on the field quite a bit. And he does a great job in doing that. So, I mean, I'm okay with him just returning.
That's what I think. My thought with Grant is you let him be your returner, and every once in a while you bring him in and try and get him isolated on a linebacker, and you take advantage of that when you can. And that's it. I would not play him, more than 7, 8, 9 snaps a game at most.
Yeah,
right.
that special package we've talked about for him before.
Yeah, if you want to call it that,
Yeah.
Just a matter of spreading the defense out and using him in the backfield instead of your running back or whoever. But, that we haven't had backs that were really exceptional at catching the ball and getting downfield, so maybe they could use him in that role unless they draft somebody who takes that role, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes.
Mm-hmm.
With that, let's talk about receivers first. Lewis, what did you see when you were looking through your receiver list? Obviously, there's some Alabama receivers that are tempting.
Yeah, there's a couple of them, but I like Ruggs simply because I feel that he's the slot guy. He's probably the fastest guy in regard to wide receivers coming out of the draft this year. And that's the type of guy I think we need. I think that we're lacking that. Albert Wilson, due to the injuries the last couple of years, I think he's lost a half a step, and that's all it takes in the NFL. You lose that half a step and you don't have that, breakaway type of speed anymore. He turned 5-6 yard patterns and catches into big plays a couple of years back. You didn't see that last year. And I know he was coming back from an injury, but as he got healthier near the end of the year, you still didn't see it. So we don't know if it's ever going to come back for him. So I would love to see them maybe go out and somehow grab this kid Ruggs out of Alabama. He's 5'11". He's about 190 pounds, and he is an extremely fast guy. He's a
4.27 40.
Yep. Tyreek Hill type of guy, very, very fast. I think that's what we need on this team. I mean, you've got Allen Hurns and you've got Isaiah Ford. You've got possession type guys. You need somebody that can, do what this kid does. So I like him the best out of all of them if they're going to go after somebody in regard to receivers.
Well, if you're looking for a slot player, I imagine he could fit in the slot pretty well.
I think you can put him anywhere, Mike, but go ahead.
No, I know that. A couple of things they say about him is he pinballs himself off tacklers. He's got exceptional balance, outstanding ball tracking ability, for a deep receiver. He can beat press coverage, which he probably wouldn't get much in the slot. But he does need to do a better job of making contested catches. And sometimes he gets off to a slower start than his speed would indicate off the line. But that's stuff they can work on.
Yep.
He needs to use his hands and body better to separate as well. So again, that's coaching. They'll teach him how to separate. He's got the speed. He's going to separate. They'll teach him how to use his body to his advantage.
Yeah, the only thing else I saw on Ruggs, and he was on top of my list as well, but he's not a real physical receiver, and he also lets the ball come to him rather than reaching up and grabbing it with his hands. So that's a concern for me. I want somebody that's going to go out there and grab that ball out of the air rather than letting the ball come to him.
Yeah, he needs to be more aggressive.
And that's part of that contested catch thing. He's not good with physical play, so he's got to work on that for sure.
Right. And I mean, my thing is that, like I said, we've got the physical guys. We've got Parker. We've got Williams. Those are those type of players. I mean, we need a guy that's going to burst out of that, those flat passes, out in the flat to the receivers, the quick slants to where he can just pop it and go the distance. That's what I think this team needs at this point, because honestly, the guys that we have playing those positions again, I just don't feel that, that there's big question marks behind them.
And none of them, I think, are really, a danger to score every time they touch the ball.
Now, Wilson showed some of that prior to his injury, but, again, we didn't see it last year. This kid Ruggs, is capable of doing just that. I watched some film on him, and he takes it to people. I mean, he's got some weaknesses, just like a lot of these guys.
Judy is another guy with elite deep speed. I mean, he runs a 4.440, so that's that's pretty fast. So And he would be a guy, who would be just as nice to have if you could get him.
Yeah, I looked at Judy, Ruggs, Justin Jefferson's another guy. He's a little bit bigger guy, 6'1", 202, more of a physical player from LSU. But there's a guy that really caught my eye from Baylor, Denzel Mims. He can jump like mad. He's 6'3", 207, and he's 4.38 in the 40. And his catch radius is crazy. So he's got the speed and the catching style that I'd like to see. So that would be another great outside guy, or you can put him in the middle because he's pretty physical.
Yeah, I looked at him. I forget what turned me off about him, but something did.
Yeah, there's always something with all of these guys. I was looking at a list of, draft guys in there and like a big board for CBS. And, Jerry Jeudy and Ruggs were number 12 and number 14. And this Denzel Mims was like number 43. So he was down there.
Sure. No, I get that.
No, I'm just saying that, given a little bit of perspective. And all of these lists are all somebody's opinion. So, it is what it is. But, if we start trading picks away to get a quarterback, we're not going to have a lot of top picks. So some of these top wide receivers may not be there. So I did look at some of the lower end guys on this list.
Yeah, I did too. But most of my lower end guys turned out not to be so lower end once I looked at where they were rated to go.
Yeah,
there's a lot of receivers in this draft that are gonna go reasonably early.
Yeah, it's very deep, Mike. In regard to receivers, I mean that's common these days. As far as the last couple of drafts, I mean it seems to be very deep in wide receivers.
There's Michael Pittman. He's 6'4", 223. He runs a 4.5. There's T. Higgins. He's 6'4", 205. Runs a 4.5. So both these guys have good catch radiuses. And they're good, solid hand catchers. These are both guys, very similar players that would be sort of what we have now as opposed to, Ruggs. But if they were looking for, a tall physical receiver, both of these guys are that.
Right. Yeah, I think they're going heavy in this draft on offense. I mean, the simple fact that they took so many guys in free agency on the defensive side of the football to fill the holes there, I think this is going to be a very, very offensive-heavy draft for us. And you can definitely see one or possibly two receivers being drafted on this football team. I feel that the coaching staff feels the same way we do. They're looking at these guys with a lot of question marks, and they're like, you know what? Let's get some depth in here, some more young blood, and roll the dice on a few of these guys.
Sorry, Jim. Either of you guys look at CeeDee Lamb?
I did. Or CeeDee Lamb?
Yeah, if that's his name, I forget.
Yeah, it's CeeDee Lamb. Yes,
yes. CeeDee Lamb. He's top rated receiver, Mike. So yeah, of course
he's up there on the list. 6'2" and 198 pounds. Another 4.5 second 40. Great hands. Gets open. A very good route runner. Some of these guys have all of the physical traits, but they're not great route runners.
Well, this guy breaks tackles, and that's what excited me about him.
Exactly, and that was in my notes as well. And he's good at extending plays and getting yards after the catch. So
maybe an Anquan Bolden type of guy.
They compared him to DeAndre Hopkins.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes,
more so to Hopkins. Got you. Yeah, he doesn't have Hopkins' speed, though. I know that.
Yes.
He's not extremely fast.
Well, 4.5. That's probably average for a receiver. It's not
right. It's nothing.
He's not going to be that deep ball threat that the 4.3 guys are going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And does that translate into the NFL? You just don't know.
Well, the thing is, he gets open a lot, and that's what they say. He's an exceptional route runner, and he gets open even though he's not as fast.
He's really good at getting off press coverage.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy. There's no question about it. But I think he's going to be gone by the time we even think about drafting.
Think he's gone before 18?
He could be. He was number 8 on that list I was talking about earlier. So he's ahead of Jeudy and Ruggs. So
yeah, right. Honestly, I believe they take a tackle at 18. unless they move up to take a tackle, which is possible also.
Oh,
yeah, they're not drafting a receiver, Mike, at 18. I don't see it. Honestly, I don't see it. And, I mean, unless somebody incredibly talented is still on the board, like maybe Lamb or Judy or one of these guys, even with our third pick, if we still have our third pick, I don't see us taking a receiver there either. I really don't. I think you're looking at second or third round where they maybe, take a shot on one of these guys.
Yeah. I would say at least a couple of these guys are going to be there in the second round.
Oh, without a question of a doubt. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, most of these guys will probably be end of the first or all the way through the second and into the third. So we'll have plenty of receivers to pick from whenever we're picking up those top couple of rounds.
I wish it was quarterbacks instead of receivers that was so deep.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
Yeah.
All right, so running backs. Lewis, what did you see there?
Well, we need a running back. We already talked about that. I like Swift. There's a couple of other guys that are interesting. I think that Swift is a guy that we're linked to for some reason. I mean, a lot of these mock drafts have us taking him with that number 18 pick, which I find really interesting. So maybe there's something to it. Maybe there's not.
Where did he go to school?
Georgia.
Yeah.
He's a Bulldog. Interesting player. With the running backs nowadays, the emphasis is more so on the passing game, even in college. So these guys are always, at this point, they're question marks. The last few years, all these guys coming out of college are somewhat question marks. Unless you got Barkley or somebody like that who is just going to be an absolute beast. The emphasis just isn't there anymore in college football in regard to the running game like it was years ago. I mean, I remember drafts and running backs coming out and you were like, oh my God, this guy's great. That guy's great. I mean, this guy they ran the ball so much.
Well, if you remember, Lou, everybody was looking for a bell cow back, and they've kind of gotten away from that and more to the committee approach, except for a few teams who are able to get those elite backs.
Exactly. So the big question becomes, who do you get in regard, in this draft to say complement a guy like Jordan Howard? And that's what you got to look at. They've got to look at a guy that can catch the football and be more of like a Kenyon Drake type of football player. That's what they need to complement Jordan Howard right now. I mean, Howard's 25 years old. So it's not like, we've got a guy it's not like we have another Frank Gore here. I mean, this is a guy that can stick around for a few years and be here, when this team turns the corner. So you want to get a compliment to him.
Well, let me say this about Swift. You talk about being able to catch the ball. He had only 3 drops and 76 catches.
Exactly. And that's the reason I like the player, Mike.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons.
Yeah, when I looked at these running backs, there was 4 or 5 right off the top. Jonathan Taylor from Wisconsin, DeAndre Swift, like you guys have talked about, and of course J.K. Dobbins. These guys are all solid. You really can't go wrong. And
I actually got to visit him with Dobbins right before the lockdown. The camp was enforced.
Yes, we did. And, all the NFL teams know about Dobbins, and these guys are on all the teams' radar. It's just about where are we going to have the opportunity to pick one of these guys. So if they're still on the board, I think any of those top guys could be, drafted by us without a doubt. Going down from there's a couple other guys that kind of caught my eye. There's Cam Akers and Zach Moss. Zach Moss is from Utah. He's not the fastest guy, 4.65 40. That was one of his biggest knocks on him. But 235 carries, 1,400 yards, and 15 touchdowns. 28 pass receptions for almost 400 yards and 2 more touchdowns, and only 1 fumble on the season. So that's a guy you can't ignore.
He's not fast, but he has some elusiveness to him.
Yes.
He cuts really well. He's got strong legs and drives the ball well. He's one of those guys that's tough to square up and tackle cleanly. He breaks a lot of tackles. He broke 33 on 66 receptions in his career.
Yep. So that was a guy that, I figure you can get in a later round when we'll have less other things on the plate by that point.
Oh, I don't know if he's going to make a later round. I would think he's gone at least by the third round.
Well, that's what I'm saying, second round rather than those first, the first few picks. He'll be there day 2 or 3. So, and Cam Akers was another guy, 5'10", 217 pounds, 4.47 speed. So that's pretty good. Sub 4.5.
FSU boy. Yeah.
Yeah. Florida State. 231 carries for 1,150 yards, 14 touchdowns, 30 catches for 225 yards, and another 4 touchdowns. He did have 3 fumbles. But, this is another guy this draft is full of this type of guy that put up a lot of numbers and are solid football players. And I think a lot of these guys would really add to our offense.
Yeah, one of them's coming to us. I can guarantee you that. I mean, we're definitely – I wouldn't be shocked if they drafted 2 running backs in this draft. Somewhere down the line in the 4th or 5th round, take a chance on a third guy because, honestly, there's just no depth on this team whatsoever.
So you don't have any faith in Gaskins and Laird?
No, not really. I mean, Laird I like. I think he's a solid player, but, we have to upgrade. I mean, he did a great job, and he was a great story last year, but he's very limited in what he can do, Jim.
Yeah,
he is what he is. I mean, he's never gonna beat you down in any way, shape, or form. Whether it's running the football, catching the football.
You're gonna laugh at this or think I'm nuts, one of the two. But he reminded me of Jim Jensen running the ball.
Yeah, that's funny. The the thing about the Dolphins this year is the fact that they have the ability with all these draft picks to basically do whatever they want to do. I mean, they have the luxury of drafting a couple of running backs in one draft. They have so many draft picks. And the fact that they address the defense in so many ways is going to allow them to have that flexibility on the offensive side to maybe bring a couple of young running backs in here. I'd love to see it. Bring the competition in and let these guys battle for it. And, the other fella, Balaj, is he even under contract this year? I think he is, right?
Yes.
He's still under contract. I mean, I think that if they do draft a couple of backs and they do bring some people in now that Jordan Howard's here as well, and you mentioned Laird and Gaskins, Jim, Balaj's job is really in question going into next year.
No doubt.
I mean, this is a guy that was starting for us at the beginning of last year. And in all honesty, if they do take a couple of young running backs, he's going to have a really hard time making this football team.
Well, when you can't catch the football and you're averaging like 2 yards per carry, you're not going to open anybody's eyes. It's just not going to happen. So
did he average that much?
I don't know. I'm giving him the benefit. It's just a round number I came up with. I knew it wasn't good. But you're not catching the coach's eyes. You're not catching the fan base's eyes. Nobody knows you exist. You've got to show something, and he just really didn't make anything of his attempts. So it is what it is moving forward.
Yep, there'll be a lot to decide when it comes to the running back position. I mean, we're all pretty certain they're going to draft a back somewhere, I would say, before round 3 is over.
Mike, I honestly think they're going to take one in the first round, depending on how things fall into place. I really do feel that way, whether it's with our second or our third. If we do somehow land Tua, I think that you should probably go offensive line with your next pick, but there's no guarantee there. If the linemen start coming off the board quickly and it goes in that direction, I can definitely see them taking a running back as early as the first round. If not, then very, very early, with their early pick in the second round. I think they feel that it's an absolute necessity on this team, and I think they're going to address it early.
Both are important. In my mind, because if you have a young quarterback, you really want that better running back to help him.
Mm-hmm.
And of course you need the tackle to protect him. So to me, they're both important because they're both going to help him.
Yes.
Well, this new regime surprised us all, I think, in free agency. So don't be too shocked if they do something we weren't thinking they were going to in this draft.
Like what?
Well, let me get my crystal ball out. Could be anything. I mean, it could be opposite of what we think they're going to do.
So you haven't thought of it yet, is what you're saying.
Well, If I'm looking at my crystal ball, people tease me about my crystal ball, and with all the smoke screens that are out there, it's impossible to read that crystal ball.
Yeah, I meant to talk about that because people they see an article, it says, and they get so upset.
I know.
Come on, people.
Yeah, you can't believe any of it right now.
It's all smoke, whether it's true or not. It's all smoke.
Right.
Okay. Right. And that's how you have to take this stuff. Oh, they're really high on this one and that one, and it's funny.
Don't believe what you read.
Laugh,
Is it the 24th yet?
No.
Oh, dang.
But, Jim, you are on to something in regard to that. You just don't know what they're going to do. And Mike, I know you were goofing on him and stuff, but he's absolutely right. I mean, you don't know.
No, I'm not goofing on him. I agree with him.
Oh, okay. All right. So, I mean, we're all in agreement here. I mean, this coaching staff can they can pull something crazy off. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if they trade a bunch of their picks and move up to number one. Nothing's going to surprise me right now. I think they're going for it. It's that simple. It's great. You don't want them to be conservative in any way, shape, or form.
No, we've seen where conservative gets you, right?
Absolutely. You want them to roll the dice. You have to roll the dice. You have to do it. You have to gamble. Yeah. So, I mean, if you're going to do it, I don't necessarily agree with mortgaging everybody on one pick, sending everybody over there, but it wouldn't shock me if they did it, is what I'm saying. I mean, am I going to be in agreement with that? Probably not.
I think if they do it, Lewis, they'll split it between this year and next year. They're not going to give up all their draft picks this year. That's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. I mean, early draft picks.
Right. Well, you would hope it's not going to happen.
I don't think it's going to happen. Right. I don't think it would make sense for them, and I don't think that they think it would make sense for them. I think, it's possible they give up their 3 firsts. I mean, that's possible, and a second next year or something like that.
Well, let me ask you this. Is Ross going to just insist on them doing whatever it takes to get Burrows? Because I can see him having input on this. I mean, I don't know how you guys feel about that.
Let me tell you why he'd have input. He'd have input because they were in the bottom third of the league in attendance last year.
Right.
And, that's got to concern him after he pumped all that money into the stadium. So I'm sure he wants more people to come out to watch the Dolphins. So maybe he is saying, guys, I want you to get me a quarterback. Mm-hmm. But I don't think he would insist that they get Burrow. He might suggest it. I don't think he'd insist it. Well, does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. It makes sense. I just think that, he's that type of guy that, will push this issue. I mean, if it becomes a situation where, they're kind of teetering, one way or the other, I think he's going to push them towards doing that. I think he's going to be all for it. And again, I'm not sure if I agree with them, trading way too many, which I think that's what it's going to take to get that number one from Cincinnati, but we'll see.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. What is the most you would trade for number one?
We've talked about it, Mike.
Right.
Maybe a number one, switching spots, maybe giving up one of the other picks in the first round this year, and maybe, first or second round their next year. And that's it.
Just hung up on you.
Click.
What's that? The GM just, I tell that GM, okay, we'll go and get something better.
He doesn't need to because he needs a quarterback as well.
They need everything.
Right. But that's the crutch. Okay. This guy is the top prospect in the draft. Well, Tua might have been had he stayed healthy, but he didn't, and he's not. So,
and he's one player, Mike.
Right.
If you can turn around and get 4 or 5 players for that one,
but you're not giving him 4 or 5.
You're giving him at least 2 or 3, right?
Right. 2 or 3 is different than 4 or 5.
No, but very high picks.
Yeah.
And who's to say? You can give them later round picks. You can give them 5 picks. They don't necessarily have to be a first or a second rounder. You can give them a third round or fourth round, whatever the case may be.
You have to knock Cincinnati's socks off to get them to give you that pick. And that's what you have to do. So absolutely. You have to decide how you want to do that.
Right.
How are you going to make it attractive to them?
And the big question is who can do what we can do for them. There's nobody. And who can benefit more from it?
You're asking a question that doesn't need to be asked because it may just be between Miami and Cincinnati. Miami may know there's nobody else out there that can do it, but Miami also knows Cincinnati wants to draft Joe Burrow. So they have to change Cincinnati's mind. Now, the only way they're going to do that is with draft picks and/or players.
Well, here's the thing, Mike, and this is where I feel that Cincinnati would be smart, okay? Mm-hmm. Because Burrows is not going to change that football team. They're horrible. They're a bad football team. It's that simple. I mean, they're bad all over the place. They're not a very good football team. They need a lot. They didn't address it like we did in free agency. So you can trade down and still possibly get Tua, okay? You pick up some draft picks in the process to help you in all those other areas as a football team. Now, it's a matter of how much they value this guy Burrows. Right. It's that simple. But, I mean, if
what they expect in return.
Right. If I'm Cincinnati and I'm looking at this thing and I'm saying, well, you know what? If they're willing to give up another number one this year and give me a number two and a number one next year, so then Cincinnati comes back with 2 number ones next year as well, you have to consider it. I don't think the Dolphins should offer more than that. Because if Cincinnati does want to move down and maybe they like Tua more than they do Burrows, I don't know. I don't know what their thought process is, but I could honestly see them doing it. And I don't think the Dolphins have to, just throw 15 picks at them to do it. I mean, they can add later round picks, 3rd, 4th round.
Well, look, you start negotiating, but you have to start from a position of let's make a deal.
Right.
So you don't want to insult their intelligence, so to speak.
Exactly. But again, think about the separation there. You're only talking about a few picks down. I mean, the Dolphins are so close to them where other teams just don't have that to offer, to where, okay, we're trading down a few slots. We'll still get a quarterback. We'll take our shot on Tua.
Well, if Miami wants him or they want Tua, I do believe they're going to have to move up because the Chargers are a wild card in all this.
Yes.
Yeah, they've got to replace Phillip Rivers somehow.
Right. So you don't know if they're going to be aggressive and move up or not, and they can do it. So, Miami is going to have to be aggressive as well if they target one of those 2 players. So it's just a matter of what they're going to give up to move to either, number 2 or number 1 or number 3, wherever they decide to go.
Right. Now, what can San Diego give them, Mike?
They have picks this year. They have picks next year.
Right. But do they have even close to what we have to offer? Absolutely not. No, they don't. They can give them a number 1 next year, but, I mean, past that, what can they give them?
Players?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is with that thought process is Cincinnati knows this, and they're going to play one against the other just to try to up the ante. And what they want and what they end up getting could be 2 completely different things. So...
Right. See, what I'm saying is, not to cut you off, Jim, but what I'm saying is that the Dolphins can offer them another number 1 pick on top of them flipping spots this year and a number 1 next year. San Diego can't do that. They have a number 1 next year to offer them. That's it. They don't have the ammunition that we have. They don't have the ability that we have to offer them all that. They just don't. I mean, they can give them 3 number 1s over the next 3 years. That's basically what they can offer them. The Dolphins have the ability to just basically outbid anybody for that number 1 spot.
So let me ask
Hands down.
So let me ask you this. If it took the pick number 5, pick number 26, and then a 2021 first round pick to get close to Burrow, would you do it?
I think I would. Because you still got 1 number 1 next year, and you still got another number 1 this year.
Yep.
And you're not messing around with any of your second round picks. You got 2 this year, and you got 2 next year, I believe, right? We have 2 in the second round next year. I mean, Jim, you could even go as far as giving them. And again, this is why I feel that we can just blow anybody else's doors off in regard to a trade, because you can even give them a second rounder this year. Or a second rounder next year. Just throw that in to sweeten the deal. San Diego cannot do that. They just can't. They don't have all of these early draft picks like we do.
Last year when we were trading players away and everybody was losing their minds, we said in these podcasts that these things, these decisions give us so many tools to use in the draft that it's just amazing. It's something that we haven't seen in any NFL in a long time. And we've got the most cards to play, and all of our options are on the table. And that's just fantastic to see. What they'll do with them is up in the air, but we hold all, whatever cards we want to play.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they would have held more cards had they lost a couple more games, but it is what it is.
This is true. This is true. Some of those wins are kind of bittersweet, but I think it did help build that coaching staff.
Yeah,
we
we can go back and forth with that, but this is the downside.
Was it worth it? Is the question, right?
Right, and we can't answer that now. We can't answer that. We have to see how this turns out.
Well, let's look at it this way, guys. Okay, think about this for a minute. Okay, if we don't win 5 games, and if we aren't competitive last year, do we get all those free agents here this year? Think about that for a second.
Right? No,
right? Do you get them?
Probably not.
You're probably not.
And does Flores command the respect that he does now?
Maybe.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think he's going to be viewed the same had he, only won 1 game and it went like that first game against Baltimore last year.
They were expecting him to win 0 games. So had he won a couple, he probably would have gotten praised. Had those couple been near the end of the year.
I don't know,
Jim. I don't know, Mike. I should say. I agree with Jim on that, Mike. I don't think so.
ESPN was wanting the NFL to do something about us. We were so bad. We were going to get players hurt.
That's the point.
So
if he has that team winning all of a sudden towards the end of the year, I think he would have got some praise for it. That's all I'm saying.
That's true.
I don't think he would have been in a coach of the year competition, but I think people would have respected that he kept the team focused and actually had them better at the end of the year.
Right.
And like he did and like he's gotten credit for, just not to the same extent.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, what he worked with last year, it just sent a message out there to a lot of these guys. And I mean, the fact that guys
wanted the money.
The guys, it's the money, Mike. But you know what? I mean, they're getting paid regardless of where they go, right?
Yep.
I mean, seriously. I mean, so maybe we offered them a little bit more. In some instances, we didn't.
Well, a couple of players have said they really wanted to come play for Flores, the New England guys specifically, because they knew him and, they respect him.
And there you have it. So the bottom line is you've got to weigh it out and you've got to say, well, were those wins worth it? Because we would have been in a much better position. We would have definitely had either Tua or Burrows had we lost a couple of more games. Actually, if we would have won a few more, we would have been in a much worse situation. The fact that we lost to the Giants and a few of these other teams definitely helped us. But, that's water under the bridge right now. So, we are where we are. And I think that we're going to be in a better position next year, regardless of the fact that we didn't have a higher draft pick. I think in my opinion, I think that it was worth it. The fact that they were competitive, the fact that we won 5 games. In my personal opinion, I think that it was a foundation that he set for these players that are coming back next year. And I think that that's a lot more important than the fact that they that they're drafting a couple of slots down to where we expected them to be, 1, 2, or 3, now we're at 5 in the draft.
Well, you know what, Lou? All you got to do is watch the Bengals and
exactly
see what happens, between the two teams, who ends up where first.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And the other teams that are in front of us, same situation.
Yep.
To see where they land and where they're going. I'm very, very confident in the coaching staff and the moves that they made this year. And I think that it was a very, very smart free agent signing period for us. I think they did a really good job. They addressed some needs. They got some depth on that side of the football. And now the draft is going to take care of the other side of the football.
Well, that's what I'm looking forward to seeing. We saw free agency. We liked it. Flowers, I guess, some people have questions about, but I think playing him at guard kind of answers those questions, I think.
That's upgrade, Mike.
Yes,
it's an upgrade.
That's right. And he was improving in Washington playing that guard position. So, we'll see where that goes. But regardless, I like the moves they made. We all did. And if we can come out of the draft saying we like the picks they made, we're halfway there, and then it's just a matter of if we have a season or not.
How many more days do we have before this doggone draft?
Well, it's the 23rd, and today's the 7th, so.
Oh, man, it's getting close, boys. It's getting close. You gotta be fired up as a Dolphin fan. You just have to be.
Of course.
I mean, oh, man, it's going to be a fun 3 days.
I am tired of reading all these mock drafts and articles, and it's so over the top. Just let it happen.
Right.
Yeah, my news feed is full of it, and I've just been deleting them. I don't even want to hardly look at them anymore.
It's just funny because every day they're rumored to be doing something else, and it makes the circle, and it goes back to again. It's just funny. So, the reporters got it right. So that's what happens with that. So anyway,
they've got nothing else to do now, Mike, other than write. Right.
That's it. They're all sitting home writing. All right. With that, I think we'll call it a show tonight.
All right.
Next week we'll be back again, and we'll talk some more draft. Till then, fins up, everybody.
Fins up, everybody.
Fins up, Dolphins.
All right, so that's our show for this week. I just want to remind everyone that the Finfans podcast is part of the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network.